the answers that you have provided sum up the answers that have been provided by theologians, theists, and philosophers that have supported the case for the existence of a theistic God. Now, I'm just going to summarize them and try and point out certain other things. Amongst the responses that you have given, one has been growth and promotion of good through a process of life that entails suffering as a response to what we consider as incompatible situations or evil. 2, this world, the way it is, was necessary for allowing freedom of will and choice. We will come to the definition of evil as either moral or natural evil. Moral evil cannot be possible without allowing freedom of choice. 3, God's ways are mysterious. We don't understand what He is doing, how He is doing, and as a result, it results in evil and suffering, but there has to be some reason for it that is above us. Another response was that evil is relative. What can really constitute suffering in the rightest sense? It's a case of definition. 4, well, keeping with the mysterious nature of God, we talked of a greater purpose that we are achieving. So at present, whatever the situation is leading to a greater good, whether that be in the individual's own capacity or humanity and existence at large. Another response was that good and evil are complementary. They derive definitions of each other through each other. If there was no evil, there would be no such thing as good. We were talking about suffering particularly, but obviously it has progressed into a much deeper discussion. Another response was a very curious response, which has already been given by the philosophers, that evil is illusionary. There is no evil, and therefore the question, God and evil, is a non-starter because there is no such thing as evil. Another response was a very mystical one, that we are becoming God-like and we are becoming godly through the process of our interaction with what we deem as evil and suffering. Another response is a phenomenal response, that God does relieve suffering, but we do not perceive it. Although to make sense of it would be difficult. I am suffering and I am told that He has relieved your suffering, but I'm saying I'm still suffering. And I'm told you don't perceive it, but I'm perceiving suffering. I don't know how we can frame that in a philosophical way, but it's a phenomenal response. Another response is the one known as the original sin, that there is no evil. Evil is a product of human action. Philosophically is termed as the fall of man, or the fall of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden, which results in all forms of evils. Evil is non-existence, is the contrary of good. And therefore God can never be the author of evil, for God only authors existence. Bear in mind, this is plausible, but our question was, our interaction with evil results in suffering. Explanation was given about suffering being a stimulus response. The fact is, the response is there, and at present, I am feeling it. One of the response was me and the general good, that I am suffering, I'm experiencing evil for the general good. I ask a question, why me? Why not anybody else? What connection do I have with the rest of humanity? A fundamental question is, whose choice was it anyway? We asked a question, and 2, why did God create this world? He could have chosen not to create. Whose choice was it anyway? One of the questions that is there, which was a fundamental question that nobody responded to, was, of course, people did respond. The assertion that I made, that in hindsight, we see that they contributed to the overall good. Here then we question that is there an overall good in the first place, or is this a presumption within itself? Two, those horrendous instances of evil that have gone in the history of human beings, did they contribute to the good at all? Or is it that the good would have been attained, if there is any good and growth, without that incident? And that is what makes the whole of this inquiry a pressing inquiry, because that is where we want to narrow it down to. All of us here are not in Rwanda. We are not in a land that is drought-stricken. We are not seeing our children die. We are talking about the building of a moral human individual, but poverty rids a human being of any sense of morality. A person who is starving to death will not care for the morality of speaking the truth. And I have experienced this firsthand when I've visited places on the face of this earth. Of course, there might be diminished responsibility, but the fact is that it does not set the ground for the creation of a moral person, and this is what we have witnessed. Hunger and starvation leads to stealing, theft, and justification of it. This is what we see in our lives. So here, when we have responded to this, bear in mind that there is a limitation, and that is our own context. It is not difficult to look at other people's contexts and at least to imagine their situation and to say that my responses are wishful responses. There may be other responses which are not as encouraging. But if it suits us to lead our lives like this, and if it enables growth, then that is fine. I just want to make the problem acute so that I have a worth for the next 2 days. Otherwise, if these responses are to be accepted at face value, then the responses have been gotten and I have no more function to play. So in order to increase your suffering, and in order to increase my hedonistic pleasures, we are going to put further twists to it, introduce the subject now, and leave us for a 15-20 minute break. When a person prays to God, they are praying for relief. The immediate relief often is not provided. Subsequent to that, we offer justification. I was in a situation where there was an 18-year-old child on full life support machines. I made this qualification that at present, not in hindsight, at present, the doctors were saying to the parents that we need to withdraw the extraordinary life support system. I'm not talking here about the theological problem that it created. I'm talking about the human problem and the human dilemma. Now here, the doctor is there saying that, look, we need to let her go with dignity. Because she is suffering, let her go. The mother is beside herself, and this is a real situation. The mother is saying, but it's my child. We can do something for her. If we were to keep the life support systems, God can intervene and can do anything He wants. This is the God we believe in. He can do anything He wants. Yes? And that belief is reaffirmed by religious literature. Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. Allah is capable or able to do anything He wants. And here, Allah meant the ordinary mind to understand it in a very ordinary way. Not a philosophical mind to come and interpret it away. To say the meaning of all powerful is not what you understand. I say, no, Lord, you said that. If my father were to have said, Arif, if your business is failing, I will intervene. I'll inject more money into, I understand it at face value. This is how I understand my God's words. And furthermore, He stated that Abraham cut all the birds and He resurrected them again. He stated that He gave child to Sarah and Ibrahim when they had become totally unproductive. He intervened. That is the belief of God that sustains me, yes, as a theist. Now at that point the mother is begging and saying, God, give her life. On the other hand, the doctors are saying, let her go with dignity. Now this is an acute problem of suffering. And it's a dilemma. Of course, in hindsight, when we look at the mother and we talk with her, she said, yes, it was the best thing that happened for her. Her time had come, she had to go, and if she had lived, her life might have been impaired. I'm asking a question here, that this is a response given at a later date. I am talking about a response that is to be given at present. And that is what makes the problem acute. Because in hindsight, as our human conditions dictate, we have to adapt. So here is a problem. Does God intervene? If so, why doesn't He? Does He intervene at instances? If so, why does He prefer one over the other? Is God acting in a uniform way that He chooses not to intervene at all? Then why does He call for prayers? Why is there this deep sense of need within us to pray? Why is there this belief, this condition that we have to pray and expect a response from Him? Or is it the case that God cannot do much about it? He just can't do much about it. In which case, is that God worthy of being God, called God in the first instance? Yes? Now I want to just introduce the discussions that are to follow by giving a bit of a prelude from a theistic perspective. A person who believes in a perfect God. We want to define a theistic God in the next session. We want to define certain terms like evil, good, and what type of evil is causing the problem for the existence or the nature of God. William Paley is attributed with bringing about one of the best design arguments for the existence of God. It might be a little lengthy, my presentation, but bear with me. He states that if I were to be walking upon a beach and stumble upon a rock, I will not look again at it. I would not think about it. But if I were to kick an object and then examine it and find that, oh, it's a timepiece, a watch, and looked at it and saw it is meticulously designed. Every piece of it is functioning properly. There is not a single flaw in there. Then this would prompt me to think that this did not arrive here by itself. Not only that it did not arrive here by itself, it will also make me think that the person who is the author of this timepiece is a very intelligent entity. So from this I deduce two things. That there is a maker of this timepiece, and by seeing it function so well, it forces me to believe that the maker is an intelligent maker. When me and you view the world, this is what we arrive at anyway. When we see the plant kingdom, the vegetable kingdom, the animal kingdom, the stars, the celestial bodies, the position of the sun, the earth, the satellite of the earth rotating around the earth, the tilt of the earth, the axis of the earth, every single thing operates with utmost precision. The ratio of air, the plants giving out oxygen, we carbon dioxide, sustaining each other, feeding off each other, everything is brilliantly, meticulously placed in place. 2, we are looking at the promotion of life and growth upon the face of this earth, and we are seeing that that function is being achieved. The human community has reached a staggering number of 7 billion. Now, whether wars have killed us in the past, famines and plagues have reduced the numbers of human beings, the success story is in the increase of the world population. Our ability to exploit nature and make it work for us and promote greater life. So when we look in hindsight, we find that no matter what happened, human beings are still growing and life is still evolving. There is a question, although, that without that incident, could it not still have grown? That is creating the problem. As a human condition in this life, we find hope sustains us. Hope for a better tomorrow. It has always sustained the growth of humanity. I want us to check our innermost sentiments on this. Do we always believe that tomorrow will be better than today? And does that really sustain the growth of the world? Amidst calamity, there is always a hope of relief. Hence we struggle. If we lost hope, there would be no struggle, whether we are theistic or atheist. Now here we know that we are not the author of this being, nor are we the organizers. So we say God is both the author and the organizer of existence. In this, we find that we need to relate to God in a very personal and an intimate way. For majority of us, the problem is created not because we don't believe in the existence of God or we believe in the existence of God. The problem is created only because we believe in a God who is personally involved and who is very caring. If we were to believe in a God who was not personally involved, then that would not pose a problem. But I have yet to find a human person who, before the stage of rationalizing, would believe in an impersonal God. I have yet to find a human person who in the early part of their life did not believe in a very personal God or in something that could relieve their distress. It feels as if it's a human condition to believe in something or what we call a God who is both personal and caring. It is only later on when we can't find or justify God that we make him impersonal and say, well, he's removed. But initially, we always believe in a very personal and a caring God. And we expect this God to respond to us. However, on instances when he does not respond, turns a deaf ear or a blind eye, then in that case, we then encounter a problem if we begin to think about it. Sometimes we don't encounter a problem because we don't think about this issue at all. But if we were to think about this issue, we can possibly find a problem. Now, going into this problem and discussion, we are going to give certain responses that will, or certain outlines that will provide the responses that we are after. Let us say that a person was involved in a car accident and they lost their consciousness. They wake up in a hospital. They will say, "Where am I? Where am I? Why am I here? And what are all these wires attached to me?" But in this question, where am I, there is a presumption that I am and I know I am. Can you see that? The question is not asked, who am I? Why am I at all? What is this? That is not a question. The question is, where am I? And why am I, thank you, in this place as opposed to being in my car? These are the questions. Maybe there are more pressing questions that can provide a better response and more truer question. And that is, who am I and why am I? If we can ask these sort of questions, then maybe we will get a better response. Now, I'll cut a lot of this discussion out. Here, what we have is the problem of evil and the existence of God. Historically, it has been phrased in two ways. Epicurus was the first one to raise this. We will talk about it in the second session. Hume, the skeptic philosopher, again enhanced the problem. Leibniz provided a response. John Hick provided a response. The Muslim philosophers have provided a response. The problem stands at two different levels. At the level of logic and at the level of experience. It's a logical problem in the sense that reason cannot bring about reconciliation between the notion of a theistic God and existence of evil. That's a logical problem. It is an experiential problem inasmuch as it does not seek to deny the existence of God through what we experience of evil. It seeks to undermine the possibility of the existence of God or the nature of the theistic God. So the way in which we will conduct our discussion will be, first and foremost, we will be looking at two different things which are interrelated. First is justifying or seeing if there is a justification for the existence of God despite the existence of evil and suffering, to see if they are consistent or not. In that, there will be two levels of discussion: logical discussion and what we call inductive discussion. In the logical discussion, the response is known as a defense. In the inductive discussion, the response is known as theodicy. And we will explain the meaning of theodicy. But in theodicy, as with the logical problem, there will be syllogisms constructed. If this is this, and this is this, and this is this, then the conclusion follows this way. But the conclusion doesn't follow this way, so there is a flaw in the whole thinking, unless we undermine one of the premise. That will be the logical and the inductive discussion. In the inductive discussion, we will be looking at two types of premise, the theological one and the inductive one, and trying to respond. And those responses will be known as theodicy. The second level of question, the second discussion will be the involvement and intervention of God in our lives, because that is a pressing issue at the level of our humanity and human discussion. This discussion will be conducted on the greater questions. Well, I am. Who am I? What is my relation to the world at large? So on and so forth. We will break now. Inshallah, resume in a little while and continue with the second session.